Whether they help create your favorite YouTube video or search and rescue or spot a missing person, drones are now being used in all kinds of ways, but some are good and some are bad. Joining us to discuss the pros and cons of the drone age is technology analyst Carmi Levy. Good morning.
Good morning, Beverly.
And before we get to that, let me just ask you about this incredible surge in popularity of drones. It seemed like before they seemed out of reach, and now it's a toy that everybody seems to a toy for some. Is it the cost that's driving it to be so popular?
That's certainly part of it, Beverly. Every technology starts really expensive, really hard to use, really unattainable for most people. And then in a relatively short period of time, it becomes very, very cheap, very, very easy to use. And that's what we're seeing here. Drones that cost tens of thousands of dollars or even thousands of dollars just a couple of years ago, suddenly now they're under $1,000. In some cases, they're just $100 or $200. And you don't need a pilot's license anymore to fly them. You just pick up an app on your smartphone and fly them. Anyone can access them, which of course puts some very, very sophisticated technology in the hands of maybe people who probably shouldn't be flying these things at all.
Yeah, really. And we were looking at cases over the weekend. I think 3 or 4 different airline pilots saw them in the vicinity of an airport, and a couple in New York. Let me ask you about the regulations for these things.
There really aren't any. There are guidelines. Transport Canada has guidelines that dictate how far away from an airport you must be before you fly one and how high you can go, but there aren't any laws in place that specifically ban that kind of activity. And so we've been seeing a spike over the last year and a half in incidents both sides of the border in the U.S. and Canada of pilots who are witnessing drones as they're approaching airports or taking off from them. And in some cases, aircraft have had to actually dodge them so that they don't collide before they don't collide in air. So I mean, it's one of those things that no rules and increased number of near misses, really it's only a matter of time before something pretty scary happens.
Oh boy, I mean, potential disaster there. Tell me a little bit also about the privacy concerns of these things.
Well, there's really nothing stopping my neighbor from taking a drone, flying it straight up above his or her property, and then pointing that very powerful camera right at my window. And of course, there's no framework for determining what is and is not allowed. And so we're starting to see some privacy cases, mostly in the U.S., of people who are challenging those, basically saying, stop pointing your drone at me. But this is one of those problems that's only going to get worse before it gets better, because everybody wants to get that video. They want to post it to YouTube, get that viral thing out there, and drones are the latest thing to capture the most compelling video possible. So a lot of people aren't thinking about the law, they're thinking about how many views am I going to get when this thing goes online.
No kidding. Well, what about the technology or the firms themselves in terms of either responsibility, or I know there's an initiative in the United States to try to get some stiff regulations in place.
Yeah, they're starting to talk about it because they realize that they have a role to play. So Google has joined a group of companies, including Verizon and a number of universities and researchers in the U.S. They're joining with NASA, of all organizations. They want to create an air traffic control system for drones that keeps the technology safe, allows people to use them as they're intended, but keeps them away from places and things where they probably shouldn't be. So they're actually meeting this week. They're talking about some ideas. There really isn't any indication how long it'll take to put such a system in place or who would be responsible for it, but the industry recognizes they've got a problem and they're doing something about it, and it starts now.
Yeah, well, with the incidents at airports these days, we hope that happens soon. Carmi, thanks so much for being on the show.
Great being here, Beverly. Thank you.